colors. I'm going to be working on an 8 by 10 inch cotton canvas that is mounted onto a wooden panel, and I'll describe more of how I do that later on, but kind of an experimental way for me to work on a little bit higher quality cotton canvas than usual, but I can kind of like preserve the support on the back. But I do like how smooth this is. So anyway, I applied a little bit of odorless mineral spirits. Now I will be sure to wipe off any excess. This is just going to help with the drawing. And I'm going to mix ivory black and cadmium red. That is my favorite color to use for a drawing color. And the palette that I'm using, I've compressed it a little bit today. So I've got titanium white, cadmium yellow, cadmium orange, cadmium red light, alizarin, sap, cobalt, magenta, ivory. So I have compressed it a little bit for today. And I got a new palette. Of course, you know, I really like collecting palettes. So I have a new wave, I don't know how to pronounce it exactly, Salmagundi or something like that. I don't know. It's the only new wave palette that doesn't look a little bit weird. They all have very strange shapes. Hey Gigi, glad you're able to make it right on time. Well, about 30 minutes later than usual, because yeah, Wednesdays and Thursdays my dog walking days, so I tend to be running a little bit behind schedule Wednesdays and Thursdays. Appreciate the likes, everybody. Alright, so very quickly, I didn't even think about it, but I just blocked in the face. Because this is 8 by 10, I'm going to just focus primarily on the face. Yes, there's hands. There's a hand in there, but I don't think I want to worry about that. We'll see. Maybe later. But with an hour and a half, probably not. Alright, so the face is turned in 3/4, and the center line angle is something like that. So eyebrows. And these references are copyright free references from Pixabay and or Unsplash, but if you want to paint along with this, I will post the picture for free on my Patreon along with a link to this stream. Alright, we got the eyes sketched in there. Remember, these are very improv streams, so we can talk about, you know, anything that's YouTube friendly, along with, of course, art related stuff too. Hey Julie, welcome, welcome. Alright, so I'm looking at the proportion of the forehead relative to the nose. And as usual, I will probably latch on to the nose once we get into more of the specifics. The tone of the canvas is a neutral gray acrylic. And no drawing right now. And no drawing in terms of measuring. This is pretty much just throwing down shapes. Technically, drawing and painting are the same, painting is drawing with color, but I'm not careful too much about the placement of things. I'm kind of just trying to focus on my perception. That's what I mean when I say no. I guess I should have said no careful drawing. Just working with shapes. And you see how nice this drawing color is. This is just ivory black and cadmium red. So what I like about it is because of the cadmium red, it's a little more opaque. So with longer term paintings, I can actually spend a little bit more time with this than with something like a raw umber or a burnt sienna, which this color is probably closer to like a burnt sienna or burnt umber even. Okay, so now that I have the basic shapes somewhat blocked in here, I will go ahead and mix up a color that I can use to draw with, to draw the light and the shadow. So I guess what I should have said earlier was I'm not measuring. It's always problem solving, but not so much measuring just yet, if at all. Alright, so this is red, cadmium yellow, white, cobalt blue, till I get something that's somewhat workable, and I will cover the light with this, and we'll add the dark shapes onto this. But like I said, these are very improv streams. So pretty much just doing short little portrait sketches. And this is the 17th edition. Crazy how many we've done already. Yesterday's painting was a lot bigger than this one. It was 12 by 16. This is 8 by 10. So I decided this time I would kind of limit the painting just towards a face. Because yesterday we went all into the still life. There was still life in the background and all kinds of things. I had a little extra time, which I do not have today. Hey, Mizuka. Yeah, sorry, I'm pretty sure I mispronounced your name there. Pretty certain of it. This is, and it will be, chiaroscuro looking. That is a true assessment, very good assessment, meaning the background's really dark and the face is just really light, so very similar to a Caravaggio style painting. Just trying to make sure I have the angle somewhat close. Yeah, very much kind of like a Caravaggio. What I don't want is to get too focused on anything in the background this time, kind of as a contrast to yesterday. I do like variety. I'm gonna gray out and darken my skin tone. Hopefully not too much. Yeah, so I took out some colors that I wasn't really using that much. I did use them for the still life yesterday. But since there's no still life elements in here, that don't really matter. Okay, so we've got the angle. Now we'll go and darken a little bit around the edge of the hair. Still trying not to think too much about the technique. Just kind of let it flow. Hey, Pissarro. Thin out the paint a little bit. So I do not have my spike lavender. I'm trying to preserve it now since I don't have too much of it left. So this is just the mineral spirits, which means that this will start to sink in probably within an hour. And this is just black, cadmium orange, and I threw in a little bit of magenta. And put in some cobalt blue. Now that we have a little bit of contrast, I'll add some orange to the black, create a darker brown. I'll throw this over here. Kind of guesstimate where the eyebrow is going to go. Corner of the eye. A little bit more of the cobalt blue. I see it's not so red now. Hey Korhan. Welcome, welcome. Alright, so now we're pushing these darks, which will allow us to go into planes. And photo references like this are pretty good. Obviously, working from life is ideal. But if you are to work from a reference, at least make sure that the light and shadow is pretty evident, pretty strong. Again, no careful measuring. So I'm trying to emulate what it's like to paint from life. When you paint from life, you want to be able to adjust. So if you measure too much, it's going to be difficult to adjust. The models will move. That's kind of what they do. Obviously, they won't move that much, but even a little bit is enough to throw someone off if they just focus on measuring rather than looking at shapes. Okay, so we got the darks blocked in. Now we can go into planes, and that being, I guess, the first one. So in this way, I'm going to be working from the inside out. Yeah, it's going to look like she had mouth surgery or something at first. But I'm just trying to round this plane out. And I'll go in with the light. And like I said, I tend to focus on the area surrounding the nose. So I'm punching the color up a little bit. Creating these fun little planes. So again, I like working with shapes of color because it gives me something to draw with as opposed to just trying to focus on perfect outlines all the time. But as you know, my techniques do vary from time to time. Yeah, this time I won't preserve the little spot there for my pinky. See if I can avoid resting my pinky there too much. Just to change things up. Since I'm editing out that hand, I better figure out how that's going to look. And that's about okay. I imagine that part of the neck is going to be down here. And a little bit of imagination. You see the tonal range is already pretty well established with very little detail. This is kind of what I want at this stage. A little bit of orange down here. Just gives it kind of a theatrical look. Really bright light. Dark darks. Yeah, so exactly what I would want composition wise for an 8x10. Eight by 10 inch canvas. Kind of flatten some of that area for now. And add just a trace of something for the hair back here. This is how loose we can be. We can just take this and carve right into here. Now, as these values sink in a little bit, I can go back in with the dark. Looking at that angle. Still just using 2 brushes right now. These are size 2 filberts. You can see how dramatic the light is. Still preserving that angle for the face. Push the darks a little darker yet again because they are sinking in. As usual, just working with shapes and focusing a little bit more with this section than I used to focus more with the eyes. But lately, I have a little bit better luck when I'm working with the nose or the mouth. These shapes are a little bit easier. Somehow they're a little bit easier to move, especially when they're as simplified as they are right now. Like I said, keeping this simple so I can move the shapes into more specificity is the goal. But the major goal is just to not have to think too much about the process. Just kind of let the brush strokes flow. More passion, more energy, more brush strokes. Even though today I'm a little more tired than usual. Again, because I did some dog walking today. Hey Angel, welcome, welcome. Good question. How is everybody today? I'm not as talkative today because I sat in traffic for a while. So you may notice the difference between how I am on Mondays and Tuesdays versus Wednesdays and Thursdays. I'm a little tired today. Yeah, so this smooth canvas does kind of glare a little bit more than I would expect it to. It's kind of a problem with it. I noticed it yesterday. So I keep having to use this flat brush because of the glare. Also, tiny faces are not my forte. This little 8x10 is kind of a problem. Now you would think that smaller canvases would be easier, but they're kind of not. The bigger ones are easier to move around. You know, if this was a little bit bigger, that shape I'd be able to kind of do with a little bit more speed. But it's okay. Yeah, the fan brush will do the same job as well, but my fan brush is, I don't know where it is, but it's kind of totaled. Just too much paint. But yeah, fan brush will do the same. Yeah, a smaller brush for sure. Yeah, like this one. A variety is good, but if I were to choose between like a 9 by 12 or an 8 by 10 or a 12 by 16 for a face, I'd probably choose 12 by 16. But 9 by 12 is probably the smallest size I'm more comfortable with, which is what the majority of these streams have been with 9 by 12. I'm trying some different canvas. Like I said, this one's ultra smooth, and mounting it onto, temporarily mounting it onto wooden panels. And the way that I'm doing that, it's kind of a funny little, I guess you can technically call it a hack because it's like a short-term solution, but it's basically duct taped on the back. Yeah, like I do like how smooth this canvas is, but for some reason I find that it does glare a little bit, or maybe I'm just not that used to it. "15 by 15 centimeters." Yeah, that's a small paint. Yeah, I think this is the smallest size I can do for a face. To make this tone up. Yeah, these cheaper brushes are actually doing better with this support. Although this one's pretty much done. It's got some dried paint on it. Yeah, no, it's always fun. It's always fun to push the shapes around, trying out new things. What's new with this one is the support. It's mounted onto a wooden panel as opposed to the canvas panels I buy that are already prepared. But those have a little more texture to them. So with this light setup, I changed my light setup so they just glare way too much because they're rougher. Yeah, it's a texture thing. It's a different canvas. So it's just a cotton canvas from a roll that I've had for a while, and I used duct tape to mount it onto the back of a panel, a wooden panel. So it's a smoother surface, but I don't know. It's a little bit. It's a little different. It's a little weird. I gotta say, it's a little weird, and I think it's just weird because I'm not used to it. Hey, Suzanne. Yeah, so I think I'm gonna stick with these bigger brushes. Not that they're that big of brushes, but size 2 filbert bristles, and for the time remaining, I will focus on the big shapes and let that be the aesthetic. But I won't take any of the features or anything to that much of a fine finish. Hey Angel, I have no clue how many Rembrandts I've done. How many Rembrandts I've done studies of, I don't know. You know, that was my idea before doing this series, was to just like have a day dedicated to Rembrandt, a day dedicated to Caravaggio. But I don't know, I've done it so many times before. I don't want to just keep doing the same thing over and over again. You know, at least with this being as difficult as it is with a new support, you know, different materials, different painting. I think this is a little bit better for me at the moment. But I have no clue, but it's been a lot of Rembrandts, that's for sure. It's been a lot of Rembrandts. Oh, thanks, Angel. Yeah, it's okay now. I'm past, I guess, the point where the initial massing was, it was different with this than the other support. Just the already made, like factory made cotton canvas panels. So at this stage, where everything is just kind of small changes at a time now, it's not so bad. Initially, it was kind of weird. But it's okay now. Doubt I would be a good makeup artist. I know next to nothing about makeup. I have no clue. Not even a slight clue. Appreciate all the likes, everybody. Yeah, so I think for future reference with more of a chiaroscuro type painting, if I do go in with the backgrounds, I think I'm going to start with a darker tone. Because all this is now, it's sinking in. So I'm going to have to go and attack the whole thing yet again. And then hope that doesn't sink in too much. Now I could have just used a medium. I probably should have. I might, but I won't. I'll just own up to my mistakes. So magenta, black, cadmium red, cobalt blue, yeah, this is not even like applying nicely to the surface. It's not like the one yesterday. I don't know, I guess because it's an old canvas roll. Maybe some parts of the canvas are not as nice as the other ones. I don't have any ink. If you mean like what type of oil paints I use, I mainly work with alkyds on my own projects, but for these studies I use just the regular oil paints such as Winsor Newton or Gamblin. Those are basically the two brands that I use the most. Winsor Newton or Gamblin. They're kind of like the Toyotas and the Hondas of the oil painting world. Whereas Old Holland and I want to say like Rublev or Vasari or any of those other ones are more like the BMW, Mercedes of the paint world. They're nice, but you don't really need them to get from A to B. So yeah, you can't go wrong with Winsor Newton and Gamblin. Those are the two most common and probably most useful brands to use. Not sponsored by any company, of course. So just telling you what experience has taught me. Though I'm not a fan of the new lid that they put on the Gamsol. container, because it leaks. So you got to make sure that your Gamsol container is as steady as possible. Yeah, and this, I'm gonna have to vignette that because this is taking too much attention. So just let this be kind of an abstract thing. And let that kind of mold in with the hair. Done enough of these that I know how to cover stuff up. This ain't my first rodeo. Yeah, I've made my own oil paints before. I just bought pigments. They were gambling pigments, and I mixed with linseed oil and a Rublev medium, oleo res gel. I've done that before. But I don't really do that often anymore because it's more risky. If I accidentally inhale some of the pigment, I'm gonna be in trouble. It's more risky health-wise than to just buy the paints. gonna just ignore the reflected light and just let this be about the light and shadow. Kind of a little sargenty. Mr. Sargent would have simplified things to this extent. But from a distance, it'll look like a realistic face. It's kind of the essence of a portrait sketch. The background I used ivory, black, magenta, cobalt blue, mostly those colors. Basically, it's like just trying to have a dark but not use straight black. But yeah, I'm gonna have to figure out what happened with this tone, because it didn't, or this canvas, this sheet of canvas did not behave the way I thought it should. That's why I'm choosing to have more of kind of like a brushy finish. Something went a little strange here. Whoops. Now that's, see how dark that is? That's because I accidentally put straight black. Let's mix that in. Thanks, Julie. Yeah, just to show you, this is not straight black. It probably looks like it. But look, this is it even gonna show up? There, see? So, see, I still have room to push. That's straight black, but I choose not to use straight black. Be careful of straight black and straight white, because it will flatten out your image. Yeah, Angel, yeah, kind of like that effect. The old master type face in the light. I did choose the reference for that kind of appeal. Of course, I didn't realize that I would struggle with the canvas. Yesterday, it was that this canvas sheet. Well, it's from a roll that I used yesterday. I thought it would be okay, but I don't know. I'm gonna have to figure out what happened here. Something was off. Because they just glared more than I'm used to. And also the paint handling just a little bit different. But nonetheless, I knew that because the paint handling was a little strange, I knew to go for the brushy kind of. I knew what I was doing. I understood the objective there. I don't know. Drier, I don't know. I don't think. I don't know. Maybe the weather? Who knows? I don't know, really. I mean, it's fine now, but it cost me a lot of time in the beginning. Now, see, I'm already 1 minute left, so time got me. Timing got me this time. The back side of the canvas. That would be hilarious. No, I didn't use the back side of the canvas roll. But if I did, it would have been a lot different. It would have been really different if I used the back side of the canvas roll. Understood the assignment. Yeah, go for brushy. Not gonna be able to go with the not super finish. Not that I ever use a super finish, but I usually have a little bit more in the painting than that. But we are out of time. We are out of time. Despite the challenges, this was a good learning experience for me. And I think whenever I have a more chiaroscuro type effect or painting, I might go with the darker, maybe like a darker brown background and draw a little more. Because going from that like neutral gray, and I guess let this be a note for everyone. Going from that neutral gray tone, if you scroll all the way back to the beginning, to adding this dramatic of a dark to the background, it's fighting like the surface a little bit. I think it's fighting the surface. I think had I toned it a little bit different, had I toned it darker, maybe like a dark brown, I wouldn't have been fighting the surface as much as I did this time. But we always got something to learn. No, it's impossible to paint on the backside because the backside doesn't have any finish on it. Yeah, no, it's not possible. It's not possible, I tell you. It's not possible. But yeah, let this be known. I guess let's see if I can remember. Next time I choose a chiaroscuro type, maybe I should choose it for the next one. Do another chiaroscuro, but just try with a darker background, like a darker brown. I think that might be better. Either way, I'm gonna sign it. A bigger signature, because if anyone does end up buying this, they're not buying it for the face value. They're buying it for the name. Okie dokie, that's number 17. And we always learn something with these. Always learn something. If everything went the way it was supposed to, we wouldn't learn a thing. That's why I said these are always nice and fun improv paintings. Guava Biscotti, aka Donda, you showed up right at the last minute. Thanks for showing up. Let me go back to the palette. Titanium white, cadmium yellow, cadmium orange, cadmium red light, alizarin, sap green, cobalt blue, magenta, ivory black. I like this for skin tones despite my canvas causing me some issues today, because it's basically the primaries. So I had alizarin and red, so I got 2 reds. I got 1 orange, I got 1 yellow, 1 blue, which is cobalt blue, 1 green, sap green, 1 purpley color, which is magenta, and then ivory black. And I did struggle with this canvas for some reason. It didn't take the paint as much as I wanted it to, so I didn't get as far as I wanted to with this painting. But nonetheless, I still think that color palette is a good simplification for skin tones. Of course, you can always just use any color palette that you choose. But anyway, thank you for all the likes. Thanks everyone for signing on. This was Portrait Sketch in Oil Colors number 17, the 17th edition. I wish you all the very best. Oh, thanks, Angel. And I'll see y'all next time.